Hi there, I'm IELTS Master Lee, and today's video is the 7 essential elements of a complete IELTS letter. And this is from the IELTS Master General Strategies video series. So this is for general training, not academic, but general training test takers. Let's get started. First, let me give you a brief overview of letter writing for the general IELTS. Letter writing should be 150 words, and your letter should take about 20 minutes. You will need to respond to a situation by writing a letter. For example, requesting information or explaining a situation. And one important thing for the IELTS letter is knowing if the letter should be formal or informal. Semi-formal, some teachers also talk about semi-formal, but I think in general you can do semi-formal as a formal letter. So don't worry about semi-formal, just write formal. And for informal, it's informal. All right, so make sure whenever you do an IELTS letter, you know exactly what kind of style, what kind of letter you should be writing, formal or informal. Next, let's take a look at a sample IELTS letter task. Here we have, you live in a room in college which you share with another student. However, there are many problems with this arrangement and you find it very difficult to work. Write a letter to the accommodation officer at the college. In the letter, describe the situation, explain your problems and why it is difficult to work. Say what kind of accommodation you would prefer. Write at least 150 words. You do not need to write any addresses. Begin your letter as follows, Dear Sir or Madam. And the source for this is IELTS.org. This is from the official IELTS website. Okay, so this is the sample task that we're going to be looking at today. Next, I want to talk about the 7 essential parts of a general Task 1 writing letter. First is the beginning. For example, Dear Sir or Madam, or Dear John, depending on formal or informal letters. Next is the purpose. Why are you writing? I'm writing in regards to, or I'm writing regarding, or something like that. Why are you writing this letter? After that is body paragraph 1. For this last question, you'll describe the situation. Body paragraph 2 comes next, and this is the second bullet point where you explain your problems and why it is difficult to work. This is from the last question. Body paragraph 3 is what comes next, and this will be the third bullet point. So you say what kind of accommodation you would prefer. And then finally, the closing. Thank you for your help, or I look forward to hearing from you, something like that, some kind of closing. And finally, the ending. Yours sincerely, or yours faithfully, and then a comma. And you end the whole thing with your name, or the name of the person you're writing as. You don't need to use your real name for this letter. You can if you want, but it's not necessary. Okay? So let's take a look at part 1, the beginning. And we have the question here on the right, and on the top right, you can see the order of each of the 7 parts that we're going to look at. So in the beginning, you need to address the person you are writing to. Look at the task for help. For example, here it says, you do not need to write any addresses. Begin your letter as follows, Dear Sir or Madam, and a comma. Don't forget the comma, and don't misspell this. It's too easy. So look at the task for help. If the task doesn't have any help, then you should guess from the task itself. So if it's an informal letter to your friend, you can make up your friend's name. You can create a name for your friend. All right? And just make sure you're writing in the correct style. So for example, if it's formal without a name, you should write Dear Sir or Madam. If it's formal with a name, then Dear Mr. or Mrs. Smith, for example. And if it's informal, then you could write Dear John, Dear Jane, or whatever it is. All right, so make sure you're writing in the correct style. That's the beginning. Next is part 2, the purpose. This is where you explain the reason you're writing this letter. You introduce the topic. In an IELTS Task 2 essay, in the introduction, you need to introduce the topic. In a letter, it's this first part, the purpose, where you tell us what the topic is. So look at this sample answer. Dear Sir or Madam, comma, my name is John Smith. I live in your college accommodation and am writing in regards to some problems I have been having recently that have made it difficult for me to concentrate on my work. So basically, I'm taking the question and I'm summarizing it in my own words and maybe adding a little bit of extra detail that I created. Okay? So if I'm the examiner, or if I'm the person who receives the letter, after reading this first part, I know exactly why you are writing this letter. And that's really good, to tell the examiner why you're writing this letter. Okay? That's the purpose. Next is body paragraph 1. So first, you'll write about the first point in your task. So what's the first point here? It's to describe the situation, right? So we're going to describe the situation. And you want to try and make each bullet point about the same length. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's not important. But try to speak or try to write about as long for each part. In some cases, your purpose and your body one may require similar information. You don't need to repeat yourself. Just once is enough, so don't worry about that. Let's look at the sample answer. So this is the first body paragraph after the purpose. I am in my second year now and currently share my room with a person who is in his fourth year. While I understand that sharing a room is required for all residents in this accommodation, my roommate has been making it very difficult for me to study. Okay, so before I told the person that I'm writing to that there were some problems, and now I'm being a little bit more specific. My roommate has been making it very difficult to study, and I'm also describing some of the background information. Where do you get this background information? Well, you need to create it. So be a little bit imaginative. Use your imagination for this part. Next, body paragraph 2. So you probably understand. Next, you'll write about the second point in your task. Here it's explain your problems and why it is difficult to work. Try to make your topic sentence in each of these body paragraphs clear so that the reader knows exactly what you're writing about. This can also help your coherence and cohesion score. For example, let's look at this sample answer. The problem is that he often invites people over for parties without telling me in advance. This was true even last week during the exam period. I've tried to reason with him, but I doubt that things will change. Okay, so this is the problem. This is why it's difficult for me to work, because he has people over for parties. I just created this. It's not important what the problem is. You just need to explain some kind of problem. So use your imagination. Try to imagine something. All right? And in the very first sentence, I say, the problem is. So the topic sentence is very, very clear here. And this one is 40 words, which is quite close to the last one. All right? Next, body paragraph 3. You'll write about the third point. In this case, it's say what kind of accommodation you would prefer. And notice in my sample answers that I'm answering each bullet point directly. All right? So here in the sample answer, we have, I am hoping that you will be able to place me in a quieter room for the next semester. I apologize for the trouble, but I need to be able to study in my residence. So this says what kind of accommodation you would prefer. I would prefer a quieter room for the next semester. I'm telling them what I want. This is the last part. So after this third body paragraph, I have finished the first bullet point, the second bullet point, and the third bullet point from this task. All right? And I've accomplished all of that. After that, we need to close our letter. So we're going to write a closing. This is where you finish. It's common to use phrases like, thank you for your help, or I look forward to hearing from you, for formal letters. And for informal letters, you could write phrases like, talk to you soon, or even, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, or something like that. You can choose which phrase you want to use, or you can memorize these ones. Just make sure they're appropriate for the style of your letter. So the sample answer I have here is, thank you very much for your help. Nice 7 words. All right, and that's the closing. And then finally we have the ending. This is the very last part, and then you'll write your name. Don't make any spelling mistakes here. It's very easy to, so don't do that. What you write here will depend on the style of letter. So take a look below at the table. So formal without name and formal with name, you can write yours faithfully or yours sincerely. It doesn't really matter. These are both okay. Just choose one and memorize it, and make sure you know the spelling of these words. They're easy to misspell. Informal, you could say best wishes, see you soon, enjoy your week, something like that. And that would be fine for an ending. Okay? And so these are the 7 parts. Before we finish, here's my sample answer. It says, yours sincerely, comma, John Smith. And this is 4 words. And then the complete sample. So we have, dear sir or madam, comma, my name is John Smith. I live in your college accommodation, and I'm writing in regards to some problems I have been having recently that have made it difficult for me to concentrate on my work. I am in my 2nd year now and currently share my room with a person who is in his 4th year. While I understand that sharing a room is required for all students in this accommodation, my roommate has been making it very difficult for me to study. The problem is that he often invites people over for parties without telling me in advance. This was true even last week during the exam period. I've tried to reason with him, but I doubt that things will change. I'm hoping that you'll be able to place me in a quieter room for the next semester. I apologize for the trouble, but I need to be able to study in my residence. Thank you very much for the help. Yours sincerely, John Smith. Ta-da! There's the complete letter, 174 words, just right. It says 150 words, but really, if you try to aim for 150, you might get 140, and that's too short. So try to aim 160, 170, somewhere around there is good. So this is my complete sample for this general task 1 writing. Fantastic. Last but not least, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching this video today. You can find us at youtube.com/IELTSmaster or IELTS-master.com. And tell me, what do you want to see next? I'm looking forward to hearing from you in the comments. Thanks so much and have a fantastic day.